All right, well, what is up, everybody? Keith Jameson, Go Back Get Guy 231 across the DFS industry. It's Friday, previewing a 4-game EPL slate with no really top teams, which is ideal and awesome and exactly the way I truly love DFS soccer. Let's take out the Man Cities, let's take out even my team, Liverpool. Let's surely take out Arsenal. They're just no fun to deal with. So, it's kind of almost soccer, I want to call it, in its pure sense. So I'm looking forward to this breakdown. Sorry that you guys didn't get a driving tour last Friday. I mentioned this on the live stream that I did Saturday morning as a replacement, that I didn't have my little cheat sheet with me, and I flat out forgot 2 of the games, and I'm sitting there trying to remember who it was. Yeah, so I got my cheat sheet. We're ready to go. Just a quick reminder, subscribe, comment, all really does help. Let's just jump right into it. The biggest favorite on the slate is Everton, minus 154, 2.5 total, hosting a pretty awful looking Watford side. I feel like Watford started okay. I think they were if I remember, my bold call the first week. I'm trying to remember who they played. It wasn't Arsenal. They had an upset the first week, and I thought it was kind of easy to see just all the excitement coming up, but after that, it's just been a disaster. Watford doing Watford things, sacking their manager mid-season, seems to be their MO. Kind of a mess. Whereas Everton's kind of on the ascent. Everton, despite not having Richarlison, not having DCL, this is really starting to look like a Rafa Benitez team. Kind of strong at the back, strong in the midfield. Alan Decore, that's not a midfield that many teams in the EPL want to deal with. So I think it's a good team, but I do think that the slate is going to really revolve around what you do with Andrews Townsend. Most expensive player in the slate. To start in the first half, we saw Andrews Townsend last week not take set pieces. Demarai Gray took on both sides. By the end, Andrews Townsend took some, still had double-digit crosses. Look, Andrews Townsend, peak Crystal Palace years, which we're kind of getting back to with Everton, would shoot a ton, would cross just because he could cross the ball, draw some fouls. He's a DFS dream. He's just pricey. We have forwards. We do not have a lacking of forwards. That's not always what we say on these type of slates, right? But we have forwards. So I really do think that Andrews Townsend is the decision on the slate. I'd much rather save almost $2,500 with Demarai Gray, who at this point we have to say that he at least has a set share. Maybe not a monopoly, but a set share. He also has a lot more goal equity than Andrews Townsend. Playing in the hole. Look, Demarai Gray, back to his Leicester days, was somebody we just died to get in the lineup. Was decent for Leverkusen, not great, decent. And he's been good all year for Everton. So now that he has a little bit of floor behind him, I really like him, 8,200. And then Lucas Digne, I think, is the other big decision from this game, 6,000 or 6,200. Look, Lucas Digne for years was just plug and play. Sure set pieces. Sometimes you even play as wing back, just bomb up. You could get 17, 18 crosses. Rafa Benitez wants Lucas Digne to be a little bit more controlled on the crossing, on just marauding forward. I still think he's a really good play, especially with Everton being such a favorite. You have some clean sheet equity built in there. But I think he and Andrews Townsend are big decision points on the slate. Do you take Matt Ritchie, who maybe has more open play value over Lucas Digne, but Lucas Digne maybe has more assist equity and clean sheet equity, all that stuff. It's very, very, very thin margins. Rest of Everton, I think, is kind of out of play for cash. Solomon Rondon for GPPs in play. I think Pickford might be pretty popular. Depending if you have the salary. Seamus Coleman's okay, not great. That's Everton. For Watford, I'm just going to pass. I'm just flat pass. Tom Cleverley is in. I'm going to spend way too much time looking at it, and I shouldn't. But he's only 3,500. Probably take some set pieces and then sub out at halftime. Because when I play Tom Cleverley, that is what happens. Ismail Assar I always like, but I don't like him nearly as much as the biggest dog on the road away. I just don't think I need it. GPP, sure. GPP could use Emmanuel Dennis, sure. Cash, maybe, if you just don't see Cleverley. Maybe Danny Rose has a share. I think he's sub 4K. I think he's fine. But nothing here for Watford. Nothing worth noting. Last man in types, that's it. Next game I want to go to is Southampton hosting Burnley. Southampton minus 106 favorite. Still without James Ward-Prowse, my dude. But in his absence, Nathan Redmond is doing a dang good job of being pseudo James Ward-Prowse and has forward eligibility. Look, I'm going to go to Rafinha at the end, but Rafinha and Nathan Redmond are the reason that you don't really have to force Andros Townsend if you don't want to. If you want to, go for it. But Nathan Redmond, 8,200, monopoly set pieces. It's always been actually half decent in open play. Even without set pieces, he would be a guy, 5,000 forward. You go like, can I get 5 or 6 out of him with a little bit of goal assist equity? Yeah, okay. Especially versus Burnley at home. Yeah, I like it a lot. 8,200, I'm not scared of it. So Nathan Redmond, he's a lock of the slate for me. It's on the cover because it's fun. You're never going to use Nathan Redmond on a cover again, so you got to use it when you have it. Outside of him, I think the fullbacks are in play for cash. Walker Peters and who is it? Renaud, I believe his name is, or they do the other kid. I want to say he's a Chelsea loanee. I could be wrong. I mean, everybody's a Chelsea loanee at some point in their career, but I can't remember his name. The right back. I think it's Parad and Livermito or Minto or something like that. I never heard of him before the season, but he's been decent for them. So they're both in play. GPP, Armando Broja. There's a Chelsea loanee. Got that one right. Adam Armstrong maybe if he's in. I can't remember if Che Adams is in, but all those Southampton strikers are interesting. Probably not good for cash. Not on this slate. We got some low totals, but I like them enough. For GPP. Watch. Haven't got a chance to watch Hoops breakdown. I'm sure you could probably mention some of the Southampton strikers. I think that's Southampton. Burnley. There's one guy I'm always super interested in Burnley. That's Dwight McNeil. Dwight McNeil had 9.8 versus City. That's like 15 or 16 versus a neutral team. He's only 7,000. I think that's another really good option. If for some reason like Nathan Redmond's not in, or you're just in that range, you could use Dwight McNeil as a mid. I have no problem with that at all. So he's there. I prefer him to Ashley Westwood. I don't know Ashley Westwood's price. Ashley Westwood, he goes. I think he's better than João Moutinho and Luka Milosevic, but I think he's also a little more expensive. He's just one of those types. All these center midfielders that are more defensive than offensive. They're not playing as a 10. They're playing, whether they're playing box to box or maybe they're actually playing as more of a holding guy, and you're not too sure. Just know if you play them, like almost all of your open play value is gone. It's going to be from tackles and fouls drawn and hopefully not getting yellow cards. And then you're just drawing 4 corners. And you probably don't have the biggest goal upside. You're praying to God that, if you're Burnley and you play Ashley Westwood, that you see Ben Mee or Jacob Tarkowski go on because you're like, oh, that probably came from a corner. Then you see that they freaking assisted each other and you're like, oh, head to head, thanks. MLS assist for Ashley Westwood, but then he splits with Dwight McNeil, so you have to hope it's for Ashley Westwood's side. I just think if you can avoid these center midfielders that are just on sets, you just kind of can save yourself some headaches. Just know you're kind of drawing to like less outcomes. You have less outs with them than you do if you, let's say you play Daniel James, okay? I'm skipping ahead here, but whatever. Daniel James, and you think he had set pieces. I don't think he has set pieces coming up, for what it's worth. But let's just say you think he has set pieces. And he doesn't. Well, at least he's playing left wing. He's attacking. Has a lot more assist equity being up there in that, final third of the field. His crosses are going to be, in transition or have heads on it. And then you drawing for a goal versus, you play a Calvin Phillips or a João Moutinho and you go, when's the last time they scored a goal? 1 or 2 a year? You don't have many outs. So I like to have outs. All that being said, Ashley Westwood, sure, he's in play. Everybody else from this game, GPP, except for Eric Peters, projected to start as a left back, 3,600. Eric Peters had a slate, I want to say it was last year or the year before, that he ended the slate for anybody that faded him. I want to say he's like 2,900, scored like 2 goals. Everybody thought he was the greatest thing ever. Came back and put up 3 DK. Eric Peters is a fine left back. You're not going in there with high expectations. You're going there because it's a cheap left back. And Burnley likes to cross the ball. So there you go. Crystal Palace hosting Newcastle. Newcastle does not have a chance to splurge $1 billion. So Newcastle's still pretty poor. Fired Steve Bruce. I don't know who's going to be managing them on Saturday. Is that a good or a bad thing? I have no idea. I can't imagine it's a good thing. All the players came out and said they quite like Steve Bruce. So can't imagine this is like the players are all sitting there going like, we're pumped up that this new ownership came in. They're going to send all of us away because we're not good enough for their $1 billion payroll. John Joe Shelby said he wanted to show off to the new owners and he gets a red card. So that was good. So I kind of like Palace here in a way. I know Jordan Ayew is the cover of Golazo. So he's interesting. Zaha's interesting. Their new striker, who I'm just blanking on, they got him from Celtic. Who is it? Edouard Edward, I believe. All of them are interesting. I think Milojevic, I just kind of went on a rant on his type. I think he might be kind of chalk. He's been taking a monopoly of set pieces. He does not take PKs anymore. Wolf Zaha is back on PKs, but sub 5K, cash play, fine, whatever. Hopefully he doesn't get a yellow. Hopefully he stays on corners. It's just scary when you see Conor Gallagher right beside him. If Michael Olise plays, I'd be really, really scared that Milojevic is losing corners. But I guess it's cheap enough. I don't know. Maybe he's another guy that will decide to slate. Like Palace, I kind of like, but I also sit there with Palace and I go, I kind of don't like anybody too. That just describes Crystal Palace from a DFS standpoint to me. So Palace pieces are all fine. Giata and goal, sure, that's a good way to possibly do it. But if you see Callum Wilson, Alan St. Maximin, you're like, there's enough talent there to kind of annoy me. I don't even know if Callum Wilson's fit. That's how much I've considered Callum Wilson for cash builds. St. Max, sure. All right, that's it for Palace. Newcastle, Matt Ritchie. There's your cash play. Jacob Murphy, if you're playing right back versus Manquillo, he's interesting. St. Max is a forward play that you play when there's not good forward options, and there's plenty of good forward options. I haven't even gotten to Rafinha, so that's Newcastle. Nothing there. Leeds versus Wolves. Leeds, Rafinha on the slate. Rafinha is such a baller now that he's starting for Brazil, scoring multiple goals, making them go, Neymar who? Probably not that extent. I don't think we're going Neymar who yet in Brazil. Not that I know. But Rafinha's a baller. Probably my favorite player in EPL DFS. If he's on the slate, I'm playing him. I guess I'll test that theory versus City. I probably won't. But everybody else I'll play him against. He was good versus Liverpool, down a man. So, love Rafinha. Lock and load. Easy. All day. Half set pieces, shots, fouls drawn, everything you want. Rafinha does. Leeds otherwise is priced up except for the aforementioned Daniel James. I think it's 4,500, 4,700. I think that's really in play. It's a little bit harder with Rafinha back. There's a little more depth now. They can bring Jack Harrison in. They can move Stuart Dallas up. Rodrigo can play all over the place. I think there's somebody else I'm missing. So there's just a little bit more depth there now with him. But Daniel James is cheap enough. Wolves has weirdly been leaky to shots. Jose Sa's been okay and kind of stopping them. But, yeah, I like those two. You got Shackleton. He's a cheap right back now. He doesn't really do much. I almost put him on my Mayo picks on the graphic. And then I was looking more into him. And SofaScore has him as he's a number 10. And I'm like, oh, so this guy's attacking. And he's playing right back. I haven't really got to watch. This might be interesting. And you look at what he's done as a right back and it's are you sure you're not a center back? Do you go up the field, one cross, no crosses? Doesn't look that attacking to me, but he's cheap, so whatever. We don't get Eric Peters, maybe you go him. Junior Firpo doesn't really do much. That was a lot of money spent on a guy that doesn't do too much, in my opinion, but I guess Bielsa likes him. Could you go Rodrigo? I don't remember if Bamford's fit. He's not a cash play, but Leeds is always interesting. Leeds is a team that if you stack every slate this year and they're in an okay spot, not just a terrible spot, they're in an okay spot, you'll probably get a couple GPP sweats just based on how they play, how open they are, how attacking they are. So I think they're worth it. Wolves, I love Adama Traore to be the Adama Traore he was at the beginning of the season, but he just hasn't been. And by the way, if you're looking in the background, yes, I'm circling a Walmart parking lot. But what can you do? I still have a few other things to say, but then we'll stop circling. Hopefully they don't think that I'm staking out the place. That would be embarrassing. But yeah, Wolves, Traore. There's Moutinho, sub 5K. If Tendril Storm was not on vacation, he won't even see this, but he was on vacation, I know he would be saying to me, he's man, I kind of like Moutinho. But no, I'm not playing Moutinho. Even if I end there and the build's perfect, I'll play Daniel James over Moutinho. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing this to myself anymore. Everything I said about the guys drawing dead, that describes João Moutinho perfectly. Go save 1,200. Play Tom Cleverly. I don't know. No João Moutinho for me. You want to play Raul Jimenez because Leeds is leaky? I kind of like that for GPP. I don't think anybody's going there. So I think that's Wolves. That's the slate. So just to kind of recap my top guys, who I'm building around, assuming lineups don't change: Nathan Redmond, Rafinha, and probably Demarai Gray. I'm going from there. Didn't decide on Andrews Townsend. There's the slate for you. Guys, gals, good luck. I'm going to go pull in a parking space here. Thank you all for watching. Once again, Keith, aka Gator Guy 231. See you.